to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. Here's today's question. In Zechariah chapter 6, verse 12, does the phrase, quote, "For he shall build the temple of the Lord," mean that Jesus shall build his, quote, temple through Jesus' followers, or does it mean a literal temple? Well, this is a really good question, because when you go into the Gospel of John chapter 2, we're in Cana, there's this marriage feast. Jesus performs his first public miracle, that famous water into wine. He goes into the Temple Mount, he overturns the table at the Passover season, and then with everybody kind of discombobulated, he tells them that the temple will be destroyed and rebuilt in 3 days. Now, John chapter 2 says very explicitly that after his resurrection, they understood that to mean his literal body. And yes, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20 says that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Ghost. So we get that. Now, back in Zechariah chapter 6, it's not speaking of the church. It's not speaking of the bride of Christ. It is literally speaking of a physical temple. Now, this is important historically, and here's why. The temple that we know as Herod's temple, or the one that which Jesus overturned the tables in, roughly 30-ish AD, that time period, that temple, Zechariah was written while that temple was still erected. Why is that important? Because Zechariah was speaking of even a future temple. So biblically speaking, there are actually three. The first one that was built at the hands of Solomon, the second one in the era of Nehemiah and Ezra and the famous Babylonian captivity, and a one day coming third one that's mentioned in Revelation chapter 11. Zechariah chapter 6 is actually a prophetic passage about a future temple that will one day not only be erected, but be destroyed as well. Great question. If you have one, send it to AskJeff.net, and maybe your question will be tomorrow's. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at AskJeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.